We are back. It's Andy from Snow Camps Europe and Paul from Ski Instructor Academy, SIA Austria. It's been a few weeks, Andy, hasn't it? Because as we thought, the season just accelerated, didn't it? Just got really busy into the middle of March, and it's just keep going, isn't it?
Yeah. It hasn't quietened down since the February half-term breaks, which there was 3 weeks of this year, and the last one, the very busy one, went into March. And where you would normally see that drop off before Easter, we haven't seen it yet. So whether it's coming now, I don't know.
Well, it's warm as well, so maybe a lot of people are favouring the glacier resorts as well.
Yeah, well, at the time of recording this, which is what, are we on the 20th of March, are we?
Yeah.
Something like that. So it's Saturday. On Wednesday, it snowed on the glacier and it rained everywhere else. And it looked like everyone in Zell went to Zell on Wednesday. But then on Thursday, they said, we're not going to go there again. And they all came to the glacier. And the glacier was packed. Something like 5,500 by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So, very, very busy.
Yeah, which sort of slowed us down. But as it is the end of the season, I thought on this first podcast back, we should be talking about skiing the conditions that are presented to us at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And that's often that freeze thaw. No. Oh. Well, actually, powder, yes. Normally in end of April, May, when everybody's gone, you get like big meter drops, don't you? And it's super good for like the morning. But no, more to do with freeze thaw, and particularly the thaw part of it. I think we're interested in looking at the top tips, tricks and things that we recommend during this. And I think first of all, we'll just kick off with equipment again and just say, look, your skis will be a problem now. This is a situation, isn't it, Andy, where you have to make sure they're correctly waxed.
Yep. If they're not, then you are going to find that they're not going to want to slide, they're not going to want to turn, and at some point, and we'll come on to this, you are literally going to just come to a halt when you hit that very wet snow at the end of the afternoon. Also, edges aren't as important, although we recommend a well-serviced ski, but edges aren't important, but waxes. Lots of different waxes on the market. Universal wax is going to do most people fine, albeit there are spring waxes for warmer temperatures and wetter snow, which are out there from all of the different wax manufacturers.
I mean, I can add to that and say that, from a servicing point of view, when we have people starting now, for example, on Monday, they're starting exams, we don't recommend they service their skis before they start the exam, which is a bit weird because you'd think surely, you'd want the best possible serviced ski when you're doing a ski instructor exam. But because services are a little bit all over the place at times, you run a huge risk when you get your skis serviced that you're going to get, that 1 in 10, a bad service. And if you're doing an exam, it's a problem. However, we do say wax your skis. Wax your skis. And at this time of year, when I used to teach, I would have had my skis waxed daily because a lot of the times they were just doing a quick wax.
Yep.
And therefore I would do it daily. Now it is worth mentioning if you're somebody you get somebody who's doing a hand wax job and actually, leaving it to sink in overnight, putting it on with an iron, etc. I find that just a different quality, and I've not seen a machine that matches that yet.
No, I don't think the machines that they do this fast wax on is literally this spinning brush, isn't it? And they melt some wax onto the brush, and then they just go zoom, and that's it. It's done, and it's more for the higher shop skis, in my opinion.
It's more as cosmetic. It looks nice and black again.
Yeah,
for a run.
Literally 1 or 2 runs, and it's gone. It's gone, and. Hand wax is the way forward, unless, like Paul said, you can get them done every single night. Which, interestingly, most ski hire shops in Capron now, if you've got not the cheapest rental, but the next one up or the one up, you can take them in and get them waxed as often as you like. Right. Literally, because they just do put them over that machine and it's a matter of minutes.
Yeah. So make sure the ski's waxed, because when you hit those different patches, it's going to just give you that little bit more give, less friction, obviously, which is going to be really important, because one of the things we see at this time of year is injuries that are tears, Achilles, you mentioned before, hamstrings, groin, because of that pitching action, heavy into the tibia, all these sort of weird fractures and knee things and twists, especially if somebody's trying to turn the ski at a low speed. We'll see cruciate ligaments and all sorts. And we've already spoke a little bit about skiing these conditions as a good skier. Maybe we should start first with a slow skier. Let's say if you're a plough turner, you're still at that level how do you get down the slopes at this time of year?
Yeah.
My advice would be don't ski. Well, yeah, my advice would be don't ski.
Yeah.
There's a time in the day that's optimal where it'll go from freeze to starting to thaw, which will give you some nice grip and feeling. You think, oh, this is awesome. Yep. Literally between one run and the next run, you'll go down again and think, this is the worst run I've had of my life. There's that knowledge of knowing when to quit. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it is that.
Well, we just had a camp last week, and we had an improver group and we had a more advanced group. And on the one day we were on the Maisgogel, and the lower half of the Maisgogel, we skied the full mountain in the morning, and the lower half was soft. And then in the afternoon, we skied the top half, and both groups, the advanced who could have skied down, we came down in the lift, because we could have skied down, but one of them could have then got injured, and that would have been the end of the week on the first day.
What's the point?
You know? And then when they have come across from the glacier, they've come back home on the K connection. Again, they've skied down the top half of the mountain, they've got in the lift, and they've come down. Why do it if you don't have to do it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, some people, especially the type of people we might get on these camps, may be a bit older. And there's just no point in that risk for the sake of another, 2-kilometer run. Yeah. It's just, even at the highest level, but at the lowest level, when you're still plough turning, we already know that when we start talking about good skiers skiing this type of conditions, we're going to mention speed being your friend here. We're going to be saying, look, giving it gas is going to help. Now, if you can't give gas because you're naturally slower and you're psychologically challenged anyway with the conditions and the slope, then you're going to find it tricky because you're now trying to turn your feet through porridge. Yeah, it's like just sucking and pulling
onto it. Yeah.
So don't be put off, because that's for everybody. It feels like that at the slow speed. If I try to skate slow, it would feel like that. So there's a time in the day where if you're skiing late in the season like this, I'm sorry, it's one of those holidays where you've got to be up first lift.
Yep.
And then you've got to have an early break at 11, coffee, whatever. And literally by 1 o'clock, you might be saying, right, that's it. Yeah. Or stay high up at the elevations and then do what Andy said, get on one of the mid stations and get them to bring you back home safely. But do not think you have to ski like it's some sort of challenge, because you'll regret those 8 weeks you're in plaster and having to rehab.
It's not enjoyable. No. Either. It isn't enjoyable to ski down, and I know a lot of people will go, oh, we will just do the last one run.
Yeah.
And then they get halfway down and the skis are coming off and they're walking down the side of the piste. And,
absolutely sweating.
Because it is very, very difficult. There are a couple of ways to help, obviously.
But the ways to help, what we're going to talk with the advanced side, is just the same with the slower skier. So the tips and tricks are very similar, but the ability to have those skills at the low end is going to be...
you're probably going to be limited with those skills. Yeah. Because, one thing we're going to say is, as you just said, speed, just carve through it.
Smash through it.
Someone who's ploughing isn't going to be able to smash through it.
If you're 70 kilo and you're smashing down there at 40 knots, you will crash through some pretty heavy, slow, thick stuff. Yeah. If you go into too deep, you might get yourself into trouble, but generally you'll be to smash through with your speed.
Yeah. And I think that you need the speed, but you also need that core tension that we've spoken about on other podcasts, because as you are going through it, you are... and if you're not
ready for it,
if you've not got a bit of core tension, you're still going to get knocked off and probably more likely go over the handlebars than go sideways or backwards.
Yeah, which is the big injury problem risk as well.
Because then we're looking at collarbones, wrists.
The issue is, and this is something which I'll talk about in a later podcast when I talk about why people fail to develop in their skiing a lot of the times, is good skiers have a tendency to ski forward. And they know to keep in contact, let's say, with the shin of the boot or whatever. Now, this pitching mechanism means that they're what we call at end range in the joint. So you basically got your Achilles firing up under a huge amount of pressure and strain, which is fine. I mean, Achilles, you could hang a car off it. But the Achilles tendon's now in an elastic state. It's really wanting to ping back. It's probably at end range your ankle because you're pitched forward into the boot. So what happens when you hit something soft is there's no more range in that ankle. So what you tend to have to then do is you pitch the hip, and the hip will pick up and you'll smash your face down over towards your knees. Now, my advice would be just be careful that you're not too far forward when you're going down, because you need, as you hit that slow bit, to still have range in your ankle joint to move forward if you have to, or back if you have to. But if you are at end range in any joint, you've now limited what you can do, and there'll be a reaction further up the chain. And in this case, it's usually going to be a hip, because that's the one that pitches that weight forward, because, more than 2/3 of your body weight tends to be above your waistline. So as a result, you'll slap forward. And that's, of course, with tighted boots as well. That's where we get these little shin bangs and all sorts of, tears in the Achilles, hamstrings, etc. So speed's great, but just be aware that, you need to watch your range of movement in your ankle. And that brings me on to my tip, which is basically lower your center of mass. Because if your center of mass is higher and you hit one of these big blobs of snow, then you're more likely to be pitching around, whereas if you lower to the ground, you're more compacted, you're going to be able to crash through easier or have more tension because you're under flexion. Yep. And that core tension that Andy's on about is a reactive one as well, because being proactive to it, it's difficult because you don't know when you're going to get pitched. Even when you're looking, thinking, is that going to pitch me, that bump, or is that one not? Am I going to go over it, or am I going to go through it? You have to also have the skill of reaction. And, of course, our reactions get slower as we get older. And we just need to be reactive, because what we can't do is go down like we're holding in all the way down, desperately like squeezing. It's not going to work. So lower your center of mass. And that brings us on to our top tip, and I think it's my top tip, would be some sort of compression style turn. Yep. Reversing the structure in your mind of, I normally plant my pole, go slightly up and forward into the new turn. Instead, in these type of conditions, you would plant your pole and actually actively use your muscles to pull eccentrically, to pull you down, and that will lower you through to the apex of the turn, and then allow you to simply extend your legs away from you at the end of the turn, and that brushes off the speed and allows you to move into the next turn.
It enables you to push the snow away, doesn't it? And if you push the snow away, you create that platform that the ski will then turn on.
Exactly.
I think another thing, and especially in Capron on the Maiskogel, is if you are skiing down, when you get to the orange house that's in the middle of the piste, and you come around that, it's where has the sun been for the longest? It's been on the left. So if you go under the Untereigen and go far right of the piste, it's quite often it's not been skied as much, and it's not as soft. Right. There won't be much difference in late afternoon, but it can be a little bit easier to get down.
This is choosing line, isn't it?
Yeah,
this is
like,
just like in moguls or anywhere else, looking ahead and being able to know, and with the experience of somebody who skis that run, maybe 2,000 times in their life already, they'll know it. They'll know where is the best snow at whatever time of day, at whatever point in the year. The advantages of being with a good ski instructor is to look after you. And certainly reading the line in soft snow is important. You were saying before, like trying to follow some
where other people have gone. If other people have already done it for you, then ski where they've skied. You might
created a tunnel through it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a trough basically. You may inevitably then end up hitting a bit of a bump and coming out of that, but then going to the next one that you can see. So look where you're going, and again, the less experienced skiers who we know are always looking at the front of this, they're just looking down at their tips. It's don't look at the floor, look in front and see what's there. Like when you're driving down the motorway, you're looking at all of the cars around you, you're checking what's behind you. You don't necessarily need to check what's behind you as much, but more peripheral vision.
Yeah, because that's the point as well, is usually people are skiing this at the end of the day on the death run where everybody else is skiing it. Yeah. And actually choosing a path through becomes a problem because it's just splattered bodies.
Loads of people
everywhere. So often that's why, when I had groups, I would teach them to ski on the sides really close to the edges, and they'd go, but all the snow is brushed up there, and it's all like, but that's good skiing. You can get through that if you know what you're doing, and it can be fun. But skiing and losing your rhythm and flow, Andy, when you don't get a turn shape going because somebody's pulled up in front of you, somebody's just fallen down there, somebody's crossed over your path.
Group of kids.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. And I think that really throws people out. Because it will be important in these conditions, because I'm asking you to ski lower. Andy said with more tension. We're asking you to do some sort of like more speed, stretched out turns. You're going to need to stop yourself a bit more regularly because you'll tire quicker in these conditions. And I think some people push too many turns sometimes, and get caught out. Yeah,
definitely. The legs are going to start aching because you're well, imagine how much a bucket of water weighs. Snow's probably, 3 or 4 times heavier than that? And when it's melted, and it's that heavy, so it's heavy. You're pushing against. The resistance is insane. It's a lot. Yeah.
Well, especially like you say, when you're hitting it straight on in your skis, you're going through a big mound of it, and then on the other side of the mound is another trough where you accelerate forward again, and it's this constant action of acceleration, deacceleration. It was one of the things actually about 15 years ago when we saw a lot of injuries in football and things like that. When people were starting the season again, you'd have groin strains a lot in football, and a lot of it was because in the off season they were doing training, but they weren't training in the sense of if they were sprinting them, great, run 40 meters and that. But in football, there was a deacceleration and acceleration and, of course, change of direction. And that's why people strain themselves when they go back into football, rugby or whatever they're playing, if they've just been training linearly. Now, in skiing, it's the same. There's all these different forces acting from different directions. And if you're just used to feeling it from one direction, then suddenly in this snow, you get it from everywhere, at every angle, It's just constant. So training him, obviously, again, it always comes round in a circle. Being physically fit and strong will certainly help. If you're top heavy, i.e. I think they call it fat, you are probably going to be, smashing through it on one point because you've got the weight. Yeah. But if you do get caught out, God, you're going to get pitched forward. Because imagine, if I strapped a 10-kilo weight to my chest and I suddenly got pitched, it's hard to stop that weight. It's going to keep going with inertia. So just be aware of your own self and think, where's my strengths, where's my weaknesses here? If I was heavier in the upper body, I would probably ski a little bit more straight backed in these conditions because I'd be worried about being, angled too far forward because I'm going to pitch quicker. Whereas if I've got a little bit of give, it's going to help. So a bit of the idea of the end range joint. Did I already mention that, Andy?
Yeah, with the ankle, we did with the ankle. Yeah.
So with the ankle, with the end range, it's the same with your hip. If you've already pitched yourself into what is your maximum forward position from your hip, where you lean your body slightly forward, then, you're going to get pitched because there's no more give anywhere. Yeah. So I'd say be aware of that. If you're lighter, like if you're a lady and, you're 60 kilos, whatever, then it's hard. It's hard. You've got to wait to smash through.
If you don't have to do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Take the lift.
I think that's what we're trying to say. Use a high elevation.
There's nothing wrong with, at the end of the day, saying, I am going to go down in the lift. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you had a great day, call it a day because your legs also are more tired than you think. And one of the big things that everybody finds out, as a ski instructor as well, when we make mistakes is once you've passed the lift station and you're committed, you're screwed. You've got to get down that run all the way down. And if it's a long run, it's a couple of kilometers, it's probably going to lead to fallout and it's not going to lead to a good night's entertainment.
Yeah. I suppose the other thing as well is that, or one of the last things is, if you are someone who's been in ski school all week, and I think we might have mentioned Suicide Friday before. You've been in ski school all week. Your family, your friends, your husband, wife, whoever it is, are better skiers. And they have been down a particular run every morning. It doesn't mean that run is going to be as good and suitable for you on Friday afternoon when everybody's been down it. So again, if they don't know the mountain and they don't know the conditions, question it, take the lift down.
Yep. All companies will download you on 90% of the lift. So as Andy says, do that. So they were just a few tips because look, it's the end of the season and we know things are going to get difficult and it's going to be weird, So, but of course, the end of the season brings the sun. It brings the warmth, and people can
goggle tans.
Get goggle tans. Yes. don't forget your sun cream, really important. Anything to add, Andy?
No, that's about it.
See you on the next one.